A win for Patrick Mahomes, and he enters the GOAT conversation. My name is Mark Ryan, and he is Diesel, and you're listening to the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you. We could not do it without you. It is our radio row here on the Fan Upstate this week. No, we're not in Las Vegas, but we here on Offsides plan to give you a radio row of your own to enjoy this week as we head towards Super Bowl 58. On the show today, we go to Las Vegas. Alex Gold, 610, Sports Radio 610, Kansas City, is going to be joining us. He's in Las Vegas covering the Chiefs for the Super Bowl. He's on in the next segment. Who is the next team to win their first Super Bowl at 3:40? How about Clemson and South Carolina's players in the Super Bowl this year? Look, there's a lot of news and notes. Look, guys, this has been the most passionate of a basketball season that I've experienced since I've been here. Every time I talk about it, every time I post about it, I'm like, oh, okay. Now that teams are winning or expected to win, there is a market for this. I was 24 years old when I learned that. Never knew it before this year. Perhaps because you guys had nothing to cheer for, right? This is why Field of Dreams, the old slogan, if you build it, they will come. We've got Chris Phillips set to join us at 4:40 p.m. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Can We Stop? And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Guys, we're bringing it back. We are bringing it back. Our oldie but a goodie. This is still one of my boss's favorite promotions that we did. The first year was when I arrived in 2019. Okay, so this would be, we did it 2019, we did it 2020. We did not do it 2021 because of COVID. We did it back in 2022. We missed one of those years. Maybe we didn't do 2021, 2022. I want to bring it back. Okay, here you go. If you would be so kind as to invite the wifey and I to your Super Bowl party, okay, we will take the Super Bowl party invitations that we have. We'll put the addresses on little slips of paper. We'll put them in a hat. And then we'll go to 2 or 3 Super Bowl parties this Sunday. Okay? Mark Ryan crashes your Super Bowl party, and the wifey might be there as well. What do you say? If you would be so kind as to, well, if you would like to invite us to your Super Bowl party, I'll pick 2 or 3 to go to. We'll go to 2 or 3. How do you feel about that?
Does that mean that you're going to spend a majority of the Super Bowl in your car driving?
Hell no, Diesel. Hell no. But I am willing.
Well, it's a good thing that the halftime is an hour in the Super Bowl.
I am willing to miss the halftime. You know, like,
hey, who's the halftime this year? Do you know?
Remember
last year, everybody was hyping so much that it was Dr. Dre, which that was a phenomenal halftime show. It was so good. I don't even know who it is this year.
I think last year what they did, right? They had 2 or 3 minutes of different artists, right? Like each artist had 2 or 3 minutes, then they went to somebody else. I thought that was incredible. But it's not Taylor Swift, Diesel, and therefore I'm willing to leave.
Usher. It's Usher doing the halftime
I'm willing to leave. I'm willing to leave. No offense, Usher. You know, you got some good jams. No offense. I'm willing to leave. I'm willing to bounce. But if look, you never know. You send us your address information. You might have a knock on the door, and it might be Mark Ryan and Angela. Might be Mark Ryan and Angela. I will say this, and I want to open with this too today. It is my wife's birthday today. It is my wife's birthday, and she has enriched my life in so many bloody ways, and I just adore her for all that she is. She has an unbelievable amount of patience, both with Jackson and I. I like to joke with her that she has 2 boys. Jackson and Mark are her 2 boys. But my wife has a birthday today, and Angela, I love you so very much. Cannot wait to celebrate with you. Diesel, over the weekend, Diesel knows that Angela and I are doing this elimination diet right now. So, guys, this is, I didn't bring you into this, and I warned Diesel about it last week because I look, man, if I'm a little extra grumpy right now, this would be why. For 10 days, Angela and I can only eat the following things: bison, lamb, sweet potato, brown rice, and pear. And this is day 7. And it's hard. So it's like her birthday, and it sucks because I can't take her out anywhere. What place serves just those things? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's that wild game restaurant in Greenville?
Yeah,
Saskatoon serves bison. You could have taken her there.
Yeah, it's true.
You could have gone in and be like, here's the thing. Give me the biggest slab of bison you have.
Yeah. I like it. So anyway, we're doing that right now. So I can't take her out to eat. But over the weekend, we did go, had a great time at Color Clay Cafe, where you take a piece of clay shaped however you want it. Jackson had a sword. Angela chose a platter dish. I chose a basketball, Diesel, that opens. So it's like a little container for things. But it's a basketball that opens. You paint those. Then we went on a mural tour around Greenville. A self-driving, self-walking mural tour, and we took her picture in front of a bunch of murals around the area. Really fun time, really fun stuff. Thank you, guys. But the Super Bowl invitation is open, okay? This is MARC RYAN Crashes Your Super Bowl Party. If we get 10 different invites with addresses, we'll pick 2 or 3. We'll go to them, okay? We'll go to you. You might get a knock on my door. I believe there was a Justin Hartman in 2020 who invited us. I went there, and his family and his wife thought it was the most hilarious thing because I get there, he invited me, he wasn't there. And he comes racing back, and I'm sitting there with her mom and dad and his wife, none of whom have any idea who I am or why I'm there. And they thought that was the funniest thing in the world. So all you got to do, if you would be so kind as to invite the wifey and I to your Super Bowl party, you never know. MARC RYAN might be crashing your Super Bowl party. You can text me your address, or call in and give it to Diesel. Diesel will write it down and get it to me. And you never know. MARC RYAN just might be at your Super Bowl party.
Are we going to have to confirm that these addresses are residential addresses just so that somebody doesn't send you to a weird part of town?
Somebody sent me to an adult gentleman's club, and me and the wifey and
went in there and had a great time.
But Angela, it said couples welcome. No, please don't do that. If you would like me to come to your Super Bowl party, send us an invite. We'll draw out 2 or 3. We'll come out.
I've been to a gentleman's club with someone that I was dating before. It's a lot of fun.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's a nice time. What was great about it?
I mean, there's fine entertainment, cold drinks, good music. You don't. Depends on what you were like, what your spouse is like, whether or not you can have fun the way that they want you to have fun at these establishments. But yeah.
And by the way, if you're like Justin Hartman a few years ago, he wasn't having a Super Bowl party. It was just him, his wife, his mom, and his dad. Your Super Bowl get-together, whatever it is, you don't have to have a party. I'm not going to judge your party in any way, shape, or form, but if you invite us, we might crash it. Guys, my firm belief is that Patrick Mahomes enters and ultimately will surpass Tom Brady, okay, if he wins this Super Bowl. I think he's going to surpass Tom Brady as the eventual GOAT if he wins the Super Bowl. And there's something about this that bothers me, and that is that I don't know why we did this thing with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Oh, who's more responsible? Who's more responsible? They split up. Now we're going to find out. And we got the answer, right? Like when Tom Brady left, Tom Brady won another Super Bowl. Tom Brady won another Super Bowl with the losingest franchise in NFL history. He did. Won another Super Bowl with those guys, with the Buccaneers. And Bill Belichick has largely done nothing without Tom. True to form, if you look at Bill Belichick's record as a head coach, it reads like a geek to chic or a chic to geek, right? Cool to nerd. He becomes cool with Tom Brady, was a nerd beforehand, goes right back to being a nerd afterward. Really limited success before Tom Brady, really limited success after Tom Brady. That's not to say that he's not a genius. I think Bill Belichick is a defensive genius, right? Like, they did things defensively that really wowed you. But I think we've all learned that, the pendulum on who was more responsible for the Patriots' success was at least 75, 80% Tom Brady. It certainly wasn't a majority of Bill Belichick. Why did we only do that to those guys? And I don't hear that at all on Kansas City. I don't hear that at all. I don't hear one iota about, man, who is more responsible, Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes? No, the reality is they're both freaking great. Andy Reid is the best coach in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. Why does it have, it takes both of those things. You can't win with a great quarterback and bad coaching. You guys tell me Justin Herbert is great. He had bad coaching. How far did he go? You guys tell me Josh Allen is great. In my opinion, he has bad coaching. How far is he going? To me, if I were to ask you, what's the biggest thing, the biggest legacy piece that's on the line in this Super Bowl, how would you answer that? The Renewal by Anderson fan phone is there for you at 844-326-3663. And the text line is there for you as well at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. The other thing, in my opinion, that's on the line, everybody with a San Francisco win is going to have to get off of Brock Purdy's ass. Get off of his ass. It's getting tiring. It's getting old. It's a lazy argument that he isn't deserving or worthy of the part. He may not have the Aaron Rodgers arm, okay? Maybe not. But you know what he did do in the last game that really surprised me? Used his kicks, used his wheels. Did you know he was that fast, Brock Purdy? He used them more than I've seen them use them before. He proverbially shook what his mama gave him. And I was blown away by that. He is incredibly smart. He is very accurate. He can diagnose plays. He goes through his progressions rapidly. Get off of his ass, please. The guy's a hell of a player. You put a good guy on a talented roster, suddenly no one gives him any credit anymore. Would you believe that when I arrived here in 2019, we had a producer at this station that still told me that Tom Brady is a system quarterback? In 2019, Diesel, as recently as 5 years ago, Tom Brady is a system quarterback.
Insult me in such a way. Shut up, nerd.
Exactly.
Shut up, nerd.
Exactly.
How many Super Bowls did he have at that point?
Mark's only great because he's with Diesel. Diesel's only great because he's with Mark. Or maybe, guys, we're pretty damn good because we're together. Okay? Maybe we need one another to maximize our potential.
It's like the argument of Jordan would be nothing without Scotty.
I hate this.
So what?
He has Scotty.
Yeah. Every single player, every single great player ever in the history of the NBA has had a team around them. There's always 5 guys on the court. Always.
Name me a superstar that didn't win with a Robin. You got to have a Robin. And then you got Cam Newton's comments. Brock Purdy is the 10th best player on his team.
Can we just start calling Cam Newton sour grapes?
Oh, yeah. By the way, Diesel, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Brock Purdy clapped back at the Cam Newton slander. He clapped back. Brock Purdy said, Cam may be right. I may be the 10th best player on my team, but I know there are over 90 quarterbacks on NFL rosters, and he ain't one. Okay? He ain't one. I love it. Guys, what is the biggest legacy piece on the line in this year's postseason? Tom Brady's got 6 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has 3. What I'm telling you is a Patrick Mahomes win in this Super Bowl gives him number 3. I don't think he's necessarily going to have to pass Tom Brady to be regarded as the all-time GOAT in the National Football League. 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone is where you guys can get to us and my friends. Let's check and see what you guys are saying. Texter says, I took my wife to a gentleman's club, and she ended up talking to the dancers and giving them advice. That's life advice.
Love it.
Very good. I just wanted to be a dirty old man, and she ends up being Dr. Ruth. So says Mongo.
Madcraft says Tiger Woods won without a Robin. His Robin is his caddy, Madcraft.
Tiger Woods had a lot of women named Robin. Okay, he had a lot. I'm told he had 8 different Robins, Diesel. 8 different Robins. So it's
not a common name, so you got to really work hard to find 8 Robins.
You really do. These days. I think he found them all. Texter says, is there any chance if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl that Andy Reid retires? I think so. We had the scoop from Michelle Tafoya that Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce are going to retire together after the Super Bowl, no matter what. What do you say? We've got Alex Gold from 610 Sports in Kansas City joining us next live from Radio Row on the Kansas City Chiefs. That's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. All right, it's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Alex Gold from 610 Sports Kansas City is set to be joining us here momentarily as we talk Super Bowl 58 with him. He is live on Radio Row. Increasingly, Diesel, that thing is happening where people's calls are screened, or the number that you call from, it's blocked by unknown numbers. So we've texted Alex, let him know that we are looking for him, and hope to bring Alex Gold to you shortly. All right. 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show this afternoon. Guys, there are so many fascinating jumping off points to this Super Bowl, my opinion, outside looking in. It's really interesting to consider. And what's surprising to me in the early going is that Kansas City, most people are picking Kansas City in this game. They're okay. What is the current form? Kansas City's playing their best. San Francisco's not necessarily playing their best. And you're taking Kansas City and you're giving them points. To me, the reality is, guys, I'm surprised by that. Here is the situation. We did not have a single great team in the NFL this year. And because everything is relative, no one really realizes that. Okay? Baltimore is 13-4. That's not great. And 13-4, and San Francisco 12-5, Detroit 12-5, Kansas City 11-6. Not surprisingly, there were no great teams in the NFL this year, and there have been 29 years where the best team in the NFL had a record of 1 loss or 0 losses. Okay, 28 years in the National Football League. This has not been a great year for great teams. Unbelievable how that works, right? But that said, I'm surprised by that. I think the 49ers have the best roster in the NFL. And so you ask yourself, there is an advantage for Kansas City at the most important position, quarterback. A significant advantage there. I might have Brock Purdy top 6 or 7. You might have Brock Purdy number 16 or 17. But, my friends, I think he's legit. I think he's really good. And I think the rest of the roster screams that San Francisco has the best talent in the National Football League. I for one really think this is going to be a great game. How many years did you look at this game and say to yourself, man, you know what? I think this is going to be a blowout. You know, how many years did it seem like the Super Bowl was always a letdown? We've had some great games recently, man. Some really, really good games. Right now, San Francisco's 59.4% to win, according to the Football Power Index at ESPN.com. Kansas City is at 40.6. Kansas City, best defense they've ever had with Patrick Mahomes. Worst offense they've ever had. Travis Kelce, still the best weapon. He's probably too old to be your best weapon. My early lean, guys, in this game is San Francisco. That's my early lean. I think Brock Purdy is better than many are giving him credit for. Sees the field a lot better. Reads defenses a lot better. More accurate. More mobile than folks give him credit for. And just the overall roster talent of San Francisco. Kansas City does a lot of things to make themselves very, very hard to defend. But you're not going to have to worry about the 49ers only putting up 10 points in this game. Not going to have to worry about that. This is a team that's going to put up points. Kansas City, I think, is going to need a first-digit 3 to beat them, and not just 3, obviously. They're going to need 30 points or more to win this game. Can they do that against Chase Young, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and company? Are they able to do that? I'm not so sure they can. It's going to be fascinating to see, fascinating to find out, and we will soon see, my friends. 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show today. Let's see here. Texter says 13-4 isn't great. Mark, you obviously never played competitive sports. This is not some next level greatness, Texter. You know, the best team in the NFL had a 1-loss percentage below 800. That's not great. That's not elite. It's solid. 13-4 is solid, but this isn't one of those years where we have 16-1, 15-2, 14-3 teams. And furthermore, Baltimore lost to the Colts, the Steelers twice, and the Browns. They have 4 losses to, 9-8, 10-7 mediocre teams. So, to me, I look at this year, and if that's your only example, Texter, I mean, do you think 12-5 is a great team? Kansas City's 11-6. Do you think that's a great team? Okay. Michigan just won the national championship without a loss. I mean, I don't think, in terms of best teams, I think one of the things that makes this Super Bowl so compelling is that we don't have a great team, and we don't know who's going to win, and there's not this mid-90s Dallas of a behemoth that's going to be there. I think Dirk Nowitzki might be the last star to win a pro sports championship without a true Robin. Jason Terry was doggone good when they won the title, wasn't he? I mean, I just remember Jason Terry flat lighting it up for that team. But, Texter, good points. Who was the last team that won the Super Bowl without a Robin? You got to have it. 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show this afternoon. And the text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. All right, my friends. So I want to switch gears here and get to this. There have been 12, count them, 12 teams that have never made the Super Bowl. 12 different teams. 12 teams that have never won the Super Bowl. I'm sorry. There have been 4 different teams that have never made it to the Super Bowl. All right? Here's the list of teams that have never won a Super Bowl. I can't even believe this. I mean, you have a league, 32 teams. You have a league of 32 teams, and 38% of your league has never won the Lombardi. never won the ultimate prize. So I'll ask you this. Arizona, Atlanta, Buffalo, Carolina, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Jacksonville, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, and Tennessee Titans. Who is next to win their first?
What did you say? 38% of the league has never won?
Never won.
If 38% of the league has never won a Super Bowl, and you could even subtract a few of those who have made the Super Bowl but lost, like the Carolina Panthers, doesn't that tell you that this draft structure doesn't work? The way that the draft is structured now, so that the worst teams get the best players, doesn't work.
Sure.
I mean, I've had the idea, I've floated it out many times that the best team who didn't make the playoffs should get the number 1 overall pick. That shows me a team that's like right there on the edge of being a good football team, a really good football team. Give them the piece that they need and let them go make a run for a Super Bowl next year.
You know, it's interesting, Diesel. I've said, and you guys tell us which one you like more. Diesel gives the number 1 pick to the first team that misses the playoffs. I'm randomizing the whole draft. I'm offering no incentive in any round for losing. Okay, none. Because, Diesel, you're right. You know, a lot of these teams that are on this list, it hasn't helped them to get the number 1 pick each year. Has it helped the Carolina Panthers to be picking in the top 10 each year? You know as well as I do, the Panthers are going to be picking in the top 10 again next year. How about the Arizona Cardinals? How about the Bengals before Joe Burrow, the Browns? See what I'm saying? Like so many of these teams, of these franchises, the number 1 pick has done nothing for them because they're run like crap, bad coaching. You know, you guys hear me say this a lot. What is your team's GPA in terms of winning a Super Bowl? What is it? For me, what is the grade you would assign your ownership, A through F, your head coach, A through F, your general manager, and your quarterback? What's the grade you would assign to them? If the GPA sucks for these teams, and for a lot of these teams it does, how can you possibly expect to win big? What do you guys think? You know, because it's obvious the whole tank for a draft pick doesn't work, right? It hasn't worked. I think it's bad for the product when you have teams that are actively tanking games. I was on in Tampa when the Bucs could fight for the draft pick that would be either Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston. And Diesel, I advocated them tanking. We called our theme "Waste It for Winston." Okay, waste it for Winston. Well, we were wrong. Jameis Winston ended up not being great, and it's a lot to ask to tank a season when the bust rate on first-round quarterbacks exceeds 60%.
Madcraft, you can take that as a quasi-answer to your question. He says, my question, Diesel, is how do you improve if you're the worst team in the league? You'd be in a hole you can't climb out of. No? Well, there are teams who are the worst team in the league who are in a hole they can't climb out of, even if they do get the number 1 overall pick. Example number 1, the Cleveland Browns. It took them 50 years to climb out of that hole, and they kept having the number 1 overall pick over and over and over and over again. What it does do, Madcraft, is that it makes all of those teams who are sitting right there on the edge of contention try to win football games. It does not allow them to tank down the stretch. You have to keep trying to win to improve your draft stock going into the draft. Like there are teams who are trying to get into the playoffs, and then everybody else, fans check out because you got nothing to play for at this point. But if you have to try to win to improve your draft stock, then you still have something to play for down the stretch.
Diesel, I'm going to play devil's advocate because we both want to argue for our own systems, right?
Sure.
So I'll play devil's advocate here. The last team to make the playoffs was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers, okay? Now take Pittsburgh, for example.
You mean the last 2 teams to not make the playoffs?
Oh, I'm sorry. Pittsburgh made the playoffs, but I want you to imagine we're coming down to the end, okay? You're the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to make the playoffs or do we not, right? I would argue, Diesel, if we have your policy which is, I will admit to you, is much better than what we have. But if we have your plan in place, then you got the debate going on. Do we want to make the playoffs if we're Pittsburgh? We got to go to Buffalo. We're not going to win that game. We've got Kenny Pickett at quarterback. He sucks. We'd rather have Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels.
Sure.
I would argue you still might have teams that are debating tanking that could make the playoffs, or a fan base that says, I don't want to make the playoffs. I want Jaden Daniels to be my quarterback.
Yeah, it is plausibly possible, but how much more money is on the line for players and coaches to incentivize them, to make playoff runs? All these coaches have incentives built into their contracts to make the playoffs, to win playoff games. I'm sure players do as well. Ownership wants to keep playing because they want to keep making money. They want to keep packing games into their stadiums. So I think there's a lot of incentives. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't tank to intentionally miss the playoffs. I mean, I'm not saying that it would never happen, but I still think it's better than awarding the worst team with the best players, because how many times have we seen elite college level quarterbacks go to awful situations and it ruins them? That's not to say those guys might not have just, fallen off a cliff. Like, they were great in college, right? They had something going on that was good for them in college. They get to this awful situation and all of a sudden they just suck. Like, explain to me why that happens. They don't just suck because they went from college to pros. They suck because they get put in the worst possible situations where they're unable to be successful despite all of the odds stacked against them. Like, it's a wonder that any player who is the number 1 overall draft pick ends up being great, because everything is stacked against them.
Right. Well, these, how you did that research on, the team. It takes a team. What was it? 3 years.
3 years. The average team 3 years after bottoming out, being the worst team in the league, 3 years later, they improved their win total by 6 games. And I want to say, off the top of my head, I think it was something in the range of 60 to 65% of the time. 3 years later, those teams make the playoffs. Wow. After bottoming out.
Interesting stuff. So, guys, there you go. Where do you guys come out? We're going to ask you, who is the next team that's going to make their first Super Bowl? Who's the next team that's going to win their first Super Bowl? You know the numbers. 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. And Offsides will be back right after this. He let me know that he got tied up with some breaking news, and they're pretty slammed wall to wall with that. The breaking news is, Eric Bieniemy, by the way, is not going to be back in Washington next year as OC. So, I don't know what the deal is with him. Old school coach, new school era. He seems to produce great results, innovative offenses. The reality is, guys, he can't find a gig. He can't find a head coaching gig. What is it? There are things about that situation that we may just never know. Has a bit of a checkered past. It is what it is, man. Is what it is.
But Dave Canales has a checkered past. Diddy sent me a video over the weekend, and I don't know who the guys were. It's some show. They look like they are good at what they do. Ripping on Dave Canales and the fact that he co-authored a book with his wife about, and I may be misquoting this a little bit, about running through the process of dealing with infidelity in a marriage. Like, that is part of Dave Canales' past. He stepped out on his wife. They stayed together. They worked through it. They wrote a book together. And it seemed to me like they positively processed a very dark and negative time in their lives, and they came out better for it on the back end. But these guys, all they want to do is rip this guy apart and say he's a piece of trash because he did what he did. And that's neither here nor there, your opinion on that. But Like Dave Canales has got a checkered past.
Yeah.
None of these guys are clean.
Right.
I mean, for God's sakes, Ray Lewis probably killed somebody, but they still show him on TV all the time. So don't give me this checkered past BS. Checkered past means absolutely nothing to the NFL. All the NFL cares is, can you make us money?
Well, can you win? Can you win? Can you make us money? Yeah. So anyway, guys, we ask you the $1 million question. Which of the 12 teams that has yet to win a Super Bowl is going to be the next to win their first? Is it Arizona, Atlanta, Buffalo, Carolina, try not to laugh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Jacksonville, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, or Tennessee Titans? 38% of the National Football League has never won the Super Bowl. And 4 of these teams haven't made it. 4 of these teams haven't made it. The Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions. Now, it's hardest, in my opinion, for Cleveland and Detroit. You know, they've been in the NFL forever. Houston and Jacksonville, expansion franchises. But, you know, there's 32 teams in the league, 32 teams in the NFL. One team's going to win it every year. Therefore, you should win the Super Bowl every 32 years, right? Just makes sense. I'm not trying to kill your joy for winning, but, you know, like people act like when they win, you know, it's they're doing something absolutely amazing. The reality is, if you are average at what you do, you will win the Super Bowl once every 32 years. So you can see who is better or worse at their jobs than average, right? If you've won fewer than one Super Bowl, you suck at your job. If you've won more than one Super Bowl and there's only been 58 of them, you're better than average at your job. My take, guys. Okay, now I want to delve into first who's going to be the next to make it. Okay, those 4 teams have never made it to the Super Bowl: Cleveland, Detroit, Jacksonville, Houston. What would your guess be? What's your guess? You know, we heard Dan Campbell say there's no guarantee that Detroit is going to make it back to the Super Bowl. And I said, well, Dan, I respect you. I am going to guarantee that you're going to make it back to the conference championship game. I do guarantee that you're going to make it back there. Your team is good. Big believer in you, your aggressiveness, etc. I think you're going to be back, Dan Campbell, perhaps next year. Then I went back and I looked at, okay, conference championship games. Who makes it the next year? Okay, 58% of the time in the AFC and the NFC, one of the 2 teams the following year is the same, 58% of the time. That tells you in the AFC, very likely, Baltimore, Kansas City is going to be back. That tells you in the NFC, very likely, Detroit or San Francisco is going to be back. The team to me that is going to make their first Super Bowl appearance next is the Detroit Lions. I love what they're about. I love what they're doing. The question is, can they make it with this core group of players? And I think the answer to that is yes. The answer to Jacksonville is, I don't know. The answer to Houston is, I don't know. And the answer to Cleveland is, I don't know. Now, for the first time in a bloody long time, all 3 of those teams feel like they have the answer at their quarterback position. Cleveland has Deshaun Watson, Jacksonville Trevor Lawrence, Houston C.J. Stroud. You could make a case that none of those teams would trade the guy they got for the guy Detroit has in Jared Goff. You could make an argument that none of them would do that. At the same time, I look at the complete picture. I look at just how close Detroit was. I look at the fact that they're going to improve their secondary this year that was ranked 27th in the NFL. It was ranked 29th in defensive pass efficiency. Detroit is the team that makes the Super Bowl next. And I think it very possibly could happen next year. What do you think? 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. Who is the next team to make their first Super Bowl? How about winning the damn thing while we're at it? The 12 teams that have not won it. How about actually winning it? Well, who's close? Buffalo, one could say. Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Detroit is most certainly close. Those are the three that are closest based on this year's current form, right? Jacksonville made the Final Eight last year, regressed a little bit this year. An inconvenient truth for Clemson fans. Sorry, guys. Trevor Lawrence has not been great. He's not been great. I know it's hush-hush on everything that isn't pro-Clemson when you're a Clemson fan. Okay? That's the same way for a lot of fan bases. He hasn't been great. The numbers for Trevor Lawrence look very similar to the numbers for Mac Jones through his first few seasons. All right? Not that impressive. He's got to take the next step. He's got to turn the ball over less. He's got to make much better decisions. I realized Jacksonville was 8-3 before Trevor Lawrence went down. He's just got to make flat, better decisions, man. He does. Next team that is going to win their first Super Bowl. I'm going to tell you it is going to be the Detroit Lions as well. I got Detroit as the next team to make the Super Bowl, and I have Detroit as the next team who hasn't won it to win the Super Bowl. If you are on the YouTube page, please go ahead and copy and paste your message to our text line as well. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. Diesel, what do you say? Next team to win their first Super Bowl. Who is it going to be? It's hard to say.
Not going to be the Carolina Panthers. I like Houston. I do like what Houston has done this season. I think this is a franchise that is on the upswing right now. I think, they've got the right coach. They've got the right quarterback in place. Those two things right there can take you a long way. Clearly, it took them into the playoffs this year. So, if they can make some savvy, smart moves in the offseason and get some whatever else it is they need. I didn't watch enough Texans football this year to diagnose that. But if they can get whatever else they need, I think they can make an even deeper run. And C.J. Stroud, with another year of experience, C.J. Stroud ain't losing to the Carolina Panthers next year. I don't know if they play each other next year, but, a second year C.J. Stroud would not lose to the Carolina Panthers the way they did this year. So give me the Texans.
Diesel says the Texans. I say the Lions. Diesel has taken the Texans as the next team that has never made the Super Bowl to make it and to win it. I'm taking the Lions as the next team that has never made the Super Bowl to not only make it, but win it. Look, guys, the reality is Arizona's nowhere close. Atlanta, my opinion, nowhere close. Carolina couldn't be further away. All right. The Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, they're suddenly closer overnight. Minnesota has got to figure out their bloody quarterback situation. Bringing Kirk Cousins back all these years is the bloody definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Tennessee Titans, they're pressing resets. No more Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. He did great work there. I think they kind of overplayed their hands, honestly, Tennessee. I think they thought they had a super attractive job to offer. And, you'll never get an ownership group to admit this, but if they could do their offseason over again, I don't think they fire Mike Vrabel. I think they keep him on for another year. That was the shock of the season, especially when you consider, all right, what they've been through there and what's going on with them there. Texter says, Mark, please call them the San Diego Chargers, not the Los Angeles Chargers. I can't. I wish I could. Wish I could, man. I'm unable to do that.
Well, Texter, we'll start calling them the San Diego Chargers as soon as you allow us to call you they, them, because they have every right to choose their pronouns just like you do.
That is most certainly the case. Okay, guys, your answers. Let's go. Come on. Let's go on a Monday. All right. It's not the off season until next week. Let's go. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel up next. How about Clemson and South Carolina's presence in the Super Bowl? It's Offsides, the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Is it just me, or is there a lack of buzz for this Super Bowl in this area? You know, it's weird. You know, it's the biggest event. But, you know, like Diesel and I have found the last couple of weeks that we're getting more buzz locally on Clemson and South Carolina basketball commentary than we are over the Super Bowl. And I realize, like, local always leads, right? I mean, local leads. You're 100% right. But when we grew up, it was Super Bowl being the one event that transcended that, okay? The one event that superseded everything else. The Super Bowl. We are picking up very, very limited interest locally in the Super Bowl this year. And I was thinking about this. You know, Kansas City, there's no tie between Kansas City teams in this area. There's no tie between the San Francisco in this area. This is a repeat Super Bowl matchup. There was a chance 2 of the final 8 teams, Detroit, Buffalo, could give us 2 teams that have never won a Super Bowl previously. We didn't get that matchup, okay? So it kind of feels like, to me, in a sense, we're getting a sequel. I mean, is that how you got in your offices with what you do for work? A lot of people talking about the Super Bowl? Yay or nay? Also, want to remind you, we are returning to one of our favorite little bits and promotions. Mark Ryan crashes your Super Bowl party. If you are so kind to send us an invite to your Super Bowl get-together, even if it's just a few people, you and the family, etc. If you send us an invite with the address to your Super Bowl get-together, the wifey and I will pick 2 or 3, and we'll go. All right? So you can call in with your Super Bowl invite and your address, or you can text it into us, 71307. On the text line. Text us your address. Let me know a little bit about your Super Bowl get-together. How many people are going to be there? What are you going to have there? Where do you live? Like, our studios are in Greenville. And, man, this is one of our favorite bits. We did it in 2019 and 2020, and we're bringing it back. Bringing it back, my friend. 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. So how about to go back to what we just said, spinning it locally, right? How about the Clemson and South Carolina players playing in the Super Bowl right now, this year? Each team has exactly 2. Each team has 2 guys in the Super Bowl this year, both Kansas City and San Francisco. On Kansas City's side, okay, they've got, San Francisco has 3, Kansas City has 1, but both Clemson and South Carolina both have 2 guys playing in the Super Bowl. Justin Ross from Clemson, Ray McLeod III from Clemson. South Carolina has Deebo Samuel, and it seems like a bust to me, honestly, guys. Is it safe to say this now? Javon Kinlaw, bust. Why did that not work out? I have no idea. Dude was absolutely unblockable at the college level. Unblockable, Javon Kinlaw. And, I think it's safe to say at this point, kind of seems like a bust, right? I mean, I don't think I'm hating when I say that. Seems like a bust. 2 for Clemson, 2 for South Carolina, playing in the Super Bowl this year. And, it's interesting to me. It's interesting that they both have the same number of guys. When you look at the different teams, when you look at the teams playing in the Super Bowl this year, and you look at who's in this thing and how and why, etc., what you've got is Oklahoma leads the way with 6 players playing in the Super Bowl from that college. Georgia has 5. Florida and Michigan have 4. Middle Tennessee, Penn State, Rutgers, and TCU have 3. And then you have the long list of schools that have 2 players playing in the Super Bowl, of which Clemson and South Carolina are represented. Fair number, an above average number of players playing in the Super Bowl. I mean, you're no Florida, okay? Flexing, popping my Florida Gators collar over here. You're no Florida, who has 4, but you're respectable. 2 players playing in the Super Bowl. Not bad. What about the number of total active players in the NFL from each college this year? Total number, the schools that have the highest number of active NFL players. Diesel, you got a guess? 1 through 3? Schools with the highest number of active NFL players.
Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State.
You got 1.
Only
Georgia,
1?
Oh, you got 2. And you got 4. Number 4. So you missed number 3. Very good.
I'm going to
Very
say
good guess.
LSU.
Dang, wow. How about that? Alabama leads the way, 73 active NFL players. Ohio State, 62. LSU, 58. Georgia, 57. Who's also in the top 5? That's right, my beautiful babies. The Florida Gators at number 46. Clemson is 9th with 41 players in the NFL. And South Carolina is 26th. South Carolina has 27 players right now in the National Football League. Appalachian State, by the way, Diesel, 13 players in the NFL.
Sam Martin might be the longest tenured NFL player from App State. That dude has been in the league forever.
Forever.
And
a day.
And he's a hell of a punter.
Forever and a day. Texter says, Mark, Tay and the refs fixing games has killed the buzz.
Oh, stop.
I can't. Let Diesel.
Watch something other than Fox News, would you, Texter? Because that's where you got that from.
Really?
Yeah, there's some huge conspiracy that they're spouting on Fox News. Like, Fox News will make anything political, but they're spouting some conspiracy about, collusion and Taylor Swift. And it's because they're anti-vaxxers. They're gonna have some embrace on the field after the game, and they're gonna spread an anti-vax message. Stop.
Yeah,
or pro-vax message. Just stop, you
man,
guys.
I'm gonna have to give you something to flush all this BS out of your system, Texter. I really am.
How about some horse tranquilizer? I got some of that for you. Or you could just drink some Clorox.
First invitation to the Super Bowl party has come in. Super Bowl party. Thank you so much, Texter. The wifey and I greatly appreciate that. Mark Ryan, you never know, just might crash your Super Bowl party. We do this we did this in 2019, 2020. We will see. By the way, I think Charles Barkley, Diesel, has a message for that guy. Okay? I think Charles Barkley has a message for this guy. Now, sir, with all due respect, and I do mean all due respect.
Is that like a non-Southern way of saying bless your heart, which doesn't actually mean bless your heart?
When you say with all due respect, it always precedes you slamming somebody, right? It always precedes the other shoe dropping. Texter, Charles Barkley has a message for you.
I'm going to look right in that camera. If you're screaming Taylor Swift saying she ruined her, you're just a loser. You're just a loser or a jackass. You can be A or B.
If you're screaming the Taylor Swift ruined it, guys, what are we doing when, if you don't like something politically, you don't use the product anymore?
I had somebody text into my show the other night, and this is fantastic. They texted into the show on the Planet and said that all his Taylor Swift coverage has gotten his 16-year-old daughter to actually sit down and watch football with him.
I love it.
Bringing families together.
I love it, man. Why is that a bad thing? Guys, what is wrong with us as a society where when you don't like where somebody stands politically, you stop using the product, you stop liking the product? So what do we know about Taylor Swift? We know that Taylor Swift doesn't like Donald Trump. So what? So what? You can still like her music. What do we know about Bud Light? They had a pro-gender equality message. And they sent
one custom-made or custom-printed Bud Light can to one trans influencer, sent it to him privately. It wasn't a campaign. It was a private, hey, congratulations on your thing. Here you go.
Guys, this is not, boycotting the Live Tour because they used the Live Tour uses money from NIL contributors. I mean, NIL 9/11 contributors. This is not that. Okay, just stop with that. Okay, like it's just stop. This is you saying, I'm not going to use your product. I'm not going to listen to your music. I'm not going to watch the Super Bowl because Taylor Swift is there and she doesn't like Trump. Like how sensitive could we possibly be?
We have this audio here, Mark. This is a Swiftie making fun of guys like this texter in the same way that guys like that texter are upset about all of the Taylor Swift coverage leading up to the Super Bowl. Listen to this.
I was literally just watching the air show. I wanted to see Taylor Swift perform. And for a total of 20 seconds during the whole 3.5 hour performance, there were 20 seconds where it showed Travis Kelce. I was like, what? He was there supporting his girlfriend and cheering for her. And I was like, I don't even understand what he's doing there. And why is it showing him? It's really not fair for us Swifties who have been fans of Taylor Swift for our whole lives. We wanted to watch her perform and the cameras just keep panning to Travis Kelce. It's just inconsiderate. When it comes down to it, he's ruining live music. I just feel like I couldn't ever even go to another concert again.
I'm going to say this, Diesel. I mean, that is kind of pathetic, right? That's kind of pathetic, kind of adorable. But anybody, I can guarantee you this. Anybody presenting a boycott of Taylor Swift would never have a chance of dating her, And I think on some level that jealousy is at work here and at play. This is a wholesome relationship. I don't give a rip. What is wrong with us if you are going to refuse to financially support anything because that person doesn't align with your politics?
We've lost our ability to just get over it. We don't know how to do that anymore. You don't like what somebody said to you? Get over it. You don't like this thing? Get over it. Somebody made fun of your shoes? Get over it. We've forgotten how to do that. So now everything has to turn into a continued argument. And then you just keep going round and round and round in the same pathetic, childish circles.
And it's incredible. It's just insane, guys, that we've lost the ability, seemingly, to have constructive discussion. Okay? We just want to take sides at everything. I don't get it. I don't get it. I guarantee you, okay, that many of you don't share the same political leanings as me. You're listening to this show. What, are you going to boycott the show because we don't have the same beliefs on healthcare? Really? I don't like Mark Ryan because he feels differently about healthcare than I do. Grow up. Deal with it. I mean, that's what you guys are doing with Bud Light and with Taylor Swift. It's pathetic.
IT Gamecock says it's the dads, Brads, and Chads that have a problem with all this Taylor Swift coverage.
I don't get it. Guys, I really, really don't get it.
Texter here says, I don't drink Bud Light because it sucks. Well, yeah, it's not particularly great beer. But what does it affect you if somebody else drinks Bud Light? It doesn't. Well, you know what that means?
Yeah.
If somebody else is drinking Bud Light, regardless of your feeling about Bud Light being good beer or not being good beer, if they're drinking Bud Light, that leaves more of the beer you like for you. So technically, it's a good thing. And if you don't realize, this is something Diddy, who now works for a beer distributor, Mike Venditti, who's on our station all the time, who co-hosted the Carolina Panther pregame show with me. He works for a beer distributor now. He goes, all these people who got pissed off over Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch for doing what they did, they don't have a clue of just how many beers Anheuser-Busch owns. So all these people saying, well, I'm going to go drink this instead. Yeah, Anheuser-Busch owns that. I'm going to go drink this beer instead. Anheuser-Busch owns that too. Well, I'm going to go drink this Miller product. Well, Miller has had, trans advocacy programs too. Well, I'm going to go drink this brand. They've done it too. And they did it more. And they did it openly. Whereas Bud Light sent one can to one person and you guys just can't get over it.
And the reality is you don't have the power you think you do. Okay? You can't coalesce and take down a brand.
Social media has tricked you into thinking you have power.
Yeah, it really does.
Because you can just scream into the ether and, I got 37 people to hit like on my opinion.
John Dog says, what's the over-under on how many times they show Taylor Swift? I'll be watching for that and the game. I'll set the over-under, Diesel, at 10.
Assuming she's there,
She will be.
I would take the over on 10.
Over on 10.
I would take the over on 10. Now, this is the entire broadcast, right? Are we talking about a whole broadcast or just the game? Ooh.
I think I set the number right.
Oh, man, that's tough.
I
God,
think I
that is
set the
tough.
number right.
So is the over under 9.5 or 10.5?
9.5.
9.5. I would take the over on that. Yeah. And it's an interesting prop bet. Like, are you degenerates interested in gambling? Shouldn't you want to have a new thing? Aren't you done gambling on how long the national anthem is going to take to sing? Isn't that passe, done with?
Texter says, I'm as conservative as they come, but I'm ready for Trump to take a short walk off a steep cliff. So says Spur Daddy. Except they're trying to make it a political thing with Kelsey pushing Pfizer. No, Kelsey endorses Pfizer. He can endorse who he wants to endorse. Like, who cares? Who cares? And Swift is owned by George Soros. You guys are just sheep. And by the way, I hate. Oh God, this guy. Like, think for yourself for once in your life.
Hang on. We gotta play this quote because he clearly already forgot the message.
I'm gonna look right in that camera. If you're screaming at Taylor Swift saying she ruined her, you're just a loser. You're just a loser or a jackass. You can be A or B.
So which are you, a loser or a jackass?
What's it going to be? What's it going to be? All right, my friends. Up next, I can now say this conclusively about South Carolina's basketball program. That's next. This is Offsides, the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. So I can tell you this about South Carolina and their basketball team. This team continues to shock. They continue to blow us away. And now you're no longer talking about, are the Gamecocks, do they have a chance to make the tournament? Now you're talking about the Gamecocks as one that can do damage in the tournament, that as one that might be able to make a little bit of a run in the tournament. Could they be a Sweet 16 team? Could they win a few games? Might they even be able to make a run all the way to the Final Four? There is no sport that shamefully honors brand names more so and more incorrectly than college basketball. There's no sport that does that more. All right. But all you got to do is go to the standings page, look at the SEC conference standings, and well, what do we have here? South Carolina is in second place in the SEC. Now number 15, South Carolina. By the way, my guess was that the Gamecocks were going to be 18th in the poll. I think I kind of nailed it because they're 15th in the AP and they're 20th in the coaches. The AP is always more volatile. The coaches poll is always, it's harder to make big moves up and down, right? This is unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. You got Alabama, South Carolina, Auburn, Tennessee, and Kentucky. You've got South Carolina keeping that company. Keeping that company. How about it? Just I'm blown away at the job Lamont Paris is doing right now. And then you've got this. I have used a website, Team Rankings, regularly. Oh, say that 3 times fast. Over the last few years for NCAA tournament projections, right? They've been pretty accurate over the last few years. Here are the current tournament chances, all right, for Clemson, Florida, and South Carolina, Okay, Clemson, Florida, and South Carolina. You tell me which of these odds are correct for each team. Should the odds be higher, lower, or are they just right? Team rankings, which again, like I in 3 or 4 years now, there hasn't been a significant team that's been 80% to make it, they didn't make it. Or a team that's been 20% to make it that did make it. They've been pretty accurate on this. They say Clemson is a 98% chance to make the tournament. And I'm saying, based on what? Based on what exactly? I mean, you're thrilled about this if you are a Clemson fan, but you look at the standings. South Carolina is in second place in the SEC. The SEC seems to be a better conference than the ACC this year. 5 ranked teams to 2 ranked teams. Clemson is in 11th place. 11th place, Diesel, in the ACC, but they have a somewhat respectable 14-7 record overall, 10-1 in the non-conference, but 4-6 in conference. Oh boy!
How did North Carolina fall to Georgia Tech and were still number 3 in the country when they played Duke Saturday night? Now they beat Duke, fairly convincingly, so I think they would have and should have moved back up into the top 5 after that game. But you know, I looked at the net rankings last week. It was probably Thursday, Friday of last week. And I looked at it shows you their current net ranking and their previous net ranking, and 1 through 19 hadn't moved. Like there's no movement in the top 20 in the net ranking. And I think 19 and 20 just flip-flop places. And you had to go all the way down to like number 26 to find anybody who moved up a place or 2. Like it feels like the rankings are very much rigged to prop up the big schools and the big conferences.
And no matter what they do, it doesn't matter. Win a bunch, lose a bunch, doesn't matter. There is more helmet scouting in this sport than there is any other sport. So Clemson's odds, are they better or worse than 98%? Far worse. I think I would put Clemson's odds to make the tournament right now about 60%. They say Florida, Team Rankings has a 76% chance to make the tournament. Well, Florida right now seems to be firmly on the bubble. Heading into Saturday's game against Texas A&M, Joe Lunardi had the Gators as the first team out. They lost to Texas A&M. He had Texas A&M in. But Florida, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6. Florida is tied for 6th place, okay, in the SEC right now. I'm sorry, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, tied for 5th place in the SEC. Not bad. Florida Gators resume looks very similar to Clemson, okay, 15-7 overall. But guys, you look at this top 25 poll. Florida doesn't have a vote. Clemson doesn't have a vote in either poll. Okay, either poll. Neither Florida nor Clemson have a vote. South Carolina, AP poll, number 15, 564 votes. 564. Coaches poll, number 20, South Carolina. You pine for it. They tried to disrespect you for as long as they could possibly disrespect you. And you said you made it so that they just can't disrespect you anymore. I am I'm happy for you guys. You've got something to cheer for, somebody to cheer for, right? And I like to say it's easy to me to root for good people. There's a hidden meaning in what I'm saying here. I'll let you guys figure it out, okay? Lamont Paris, it's easy to root for good people. It's easy to root against shady ones, okay? You guys fill in the blanks. What am I really trying to say there? What am I really trying to say? I'm really happy for the Gamecock men's basketball program. And now, what Lamont Paris has been successfully able to do is parlay the momentum of the women's program into his own. And frankly, folks, he's doing this with the island of misfit toys. A bunch of transfers, a Michi Johnson holdover. How do you think you're feeling if you're G.G. Jackson right now? You're in the NBA, you're making money. Bro, you were the problem. You were the problem here. How could you say anything but? You were the problem. Clemson, on the other hand, man, brutal loss to Virginia. Lost by a single point at home. Clemson was a 4.5-point favorite. I had a number of people telling me I get Virginia and I get 4.5 points. Easiest money I ever made in my life, and they were telling me that before the game. Then Virginia goes to Clemson and wins. You know, guys, you don't want to say it's a full choke job and a full tank job by Clemson just yet, but we're heading in that direction. Clemson has lost 6 of its last 9 games, and Clemson is at number 3 North Carolina tomorrow. Do you have to win that game? I don't think you do. You win that game, you clinch a tournament berth, I think, with a win. But what you don't want to see is Clemson not being competitive, Clemson getting blown out in that one, because then you're on the road on Saturday against Syracuse as well. All right, my friends, up next on the show, we're joined by Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Why did the voters keep the Gamecocks out of the top 25 for so long? That's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. Sides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, joined right now by the hosts of SEC Unfiltered, formerly the Daily Crow, the Spurs Up Show. Chris Phillips joins us right now. Chris, I'm used to your tweet coming in. I didn't see the tweet today, and I wanted to make sure that you were still cool to come on today, brother. How is life? Hope all is well.
Yeah, I missed that, Mark. I've been on the slopes all day up here in beautiful North Carolina, getting some East Coast skiing in. So I was out of the house and shredding some gnar, as the locals like to say, before I could fire off the post. So
what is the best skiing in the Carolinas?
I would say Beach Mountain and Sugar Mountain is going to be your best bet. I mean, obviously, South Carolina, there is no skiing. And then, of course, North Carolina, you got tons of different options. Appalachia Ski Mountain's another one, but I would say Beach Mountain or Sugar Mountain for your money is your best bet. But I would advise do not go on a Saturday. I know from personal experience 2 days ago that it's an absolute mess if you try to go on a weekend. So being out here on a Monday is much more enjoyable.
Chris, did you have your head on a swivel for any black bear? You saw that video, right? You've seen the video.
No, yeah,
that's crazy.
Sure. Yeah, heads on a swivel, no black bears, thankfully. Just seen some deer and some squirrels, so nothing that'll harm us too badly.
Chris, how about the Gamecock men's basketball team, man? Like, how do you explain what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Mark, we talked this time last week, and I told you that, no matter what the result is, obviously South Carolina wasn't ranked, that you keep winning and the rankings will take care of themselves. And finally, Lamont Paris' team got the respect they deserve, being ranked 15th today in the poll. I think what you're seeing, right, we always have, is it the chicken or the egg conversation, no pun intended, when it comes to confidence and success, right? You need success to be confident, but you need to be a confident group to be successful, right? And then it snowballs on each other. I think what you're seeing with this team, guys, we've talked about it before. It's a veteran group you got from the transfer portal, right, that come from winning cultures, that are good players in their own right, a bunch of different leaders, if you will, and guys that lead by example. And, when the winning happened, I think the confidence has just grown and grown and grown. And, I think obviously that upset win over Kentucky was a big step, but that win at Tennessee, man, the way South Carolina just took it to the Vols from start to finish, one of the highest scoring offense in the league, and they really held them down. So I think you're seeing a bunch of guys that, again, have a veteran presence, that are leaders, that are bought into what Lamont Paris is preaching. And by the way, they're also pretty good basketball players. And it's playing out well against South Carolina's hot, right? They're playing with a ton of confidence. So we'll see if they can carry that over into March. And it's good to see the Gamecocks getting the respect they deserve again. It's for weeks. I think we've all been kind of waiting, maybe some of us have, for the downfall or for this team to kind of turn back into the pumpkin, if you will. But, no longer are we talking about this being a fringe NCAA tournament team. This is a realistic competitor and contender in the SEC. And certainly I think they're nearly a lock at this point for March Madness.
Chris, what are you seeing from the South Carolina fan base? When I posed this idea years ago, I think I was laughed off the phone line and the text line when I said, South Carolina fans, you've been spinning your wheels at football for decades. Why don't you just embrace being a basketball school? Really embrace being a basketball school. I don't know that that'll ever happen, but what are you seeing from the fans over the past week, 2 weeks, and their embracing of this program? And do you think it'll stick long term?
Yeah, I think they're loving it, guys. Listen, I always believe that despite, low attendance numbers and maybe a feeling that there was a lack of passion around basketball, that if South Carolina had a winner, the fans would show up, right? Number one, Gamecock fans love more than anything's a winner, right? It could be cornhole or ping pong, and I think the fan base would show up and show support and show a passion for it if the Gamecocks are winning. So I'm not surprised at all. Obviously, the reaction has been, jubilation, if you will, an excitement level that we haven't seen in quite some time. And while we all know, right, that men's basketball will never rival football for attention or notoriety or even passion from each fan base, I think Gamecock Nation is showing everyone that there is a real passion and love for basketball. And, when there's a product to get behind, Gamecock Nation is second to none when it comes to getting behind that program.
Chris Phillips joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the fan upstate. Chris, Diesel and I darn near came to blows on Friday over the discussion on South Carolina, where Diesel was saying, essentially, Mark, are you saying all the math and analytics that have the Gamecocks not being great are wrong? They know more than you do, right? And I said, Diesel, they're wrong. They just beat number 5. They just beat number 6. Even today, Chris, the site that I've used for a few years, teamrankings.com, has South Carolina with a 59% chance to get in. South Carolina just ranked by the AP poll and the coaches poll for the first time all year. Like, why has everyone been so slow to react and respond to what is clearly a very good basketball team, one that is second in the SEC and one that's had a better record than, the brands that continue to be ranked in the top 10, Kentucky and Tennessee, much of the way?
Yeah, Mark, I think everybody's just been expecting the implosion, and that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I think that's what you've been seeing. So like you mentioned, it's South Carolina, I feel like, has had to do 5X or 10X what normal teams, maybe with some more history and tradition, have had to do to get the benefit of the doubt and become ranked. And you can look at the records and that'll prove it to you right there. So, I think the 59% mark, again, I think it's that low because I think there's just a lot of people, for whatever reason, maybe it's the numbers and the analytics like you guys talked about, or it's just the history of South Carolina basketball. This is a program, let's face it, hasn't been very good. I think there's many still doubters out there that while they'll give their roses to Lamont Paris this week and rank the Gamecocks inside of the top 15, I think they'll be waiting on the downfall. And I think at some point, listen, you just got to give credit where credit's due. I think we've got to stop expecting the downfall. Even on Saturday, Mark, South Carolina was a 1.5-point underdog at Georgia. And I know that was a Georgia team that beat them at Colonial Life Arena, but after what you saw against Kentucky and against Tennessee, it felt a little disrespectful that Lamont Paris's team, after winning 4 in a row, was an underdog in that game. So, listen, I think they love it, though. I think they love being doubted. Lamont Paris had the quote that if they like us, they like us, and if they don't, they'll pay the price. I think that they're being fed off of that. I think many Gamecock fans almost would have rather this team not been ranked the entire season just to keep playing that disrespect card. But this will be an interesting week, Mark. You got a big game tomorrow night at home, but against a dangerous Ole Miss team. And then, of course, you continue conference playing. I'll just be interested to see, now that South Carolina is in the top 15, this target's got a little bit bigger on their back and there's some real expectations. How do you respond to it?
Chris, there's a lot of younger guys on this team, not a really senior-laden team. As a matter of fact, I'm scrolling down the roster right now, and I'm seeing almost no seniors. Josh Gray is a senior. Talon Cooper is a grad student. What do you think this program is going to be able to do to keep these guys at South Carolina? Because, we've seen how many players will just up and leave for their senior year to go somewhere else. And a lot of these guys maybe did that from another school to come to South Carolina. What are you seeing and hearing from especially the NIL and booster side of things how they're going to keep some of these guys around and build on this for a second season.
Well, I think, Diesel, it helps Lamont Paris's job and South Carolina's job a lot when you look at the results on the court this season and, right, you're winning. And so you can sell a winning culture. And I think, again, one of the biggest reasons they're winning is that these guys have bought into Lamont Paris. They bought into his message. They bought into his vision. And so I think a lot of guys like that are going to be a lot more likely, right, to stick around when the going's good. And I think depending on what they do this year, he can sell them on, hey, we can do even more. We can go even further. You know, we've got more experience coming back. We're going to have the team to make a real run at this thing. So, you know, I think you sell, obviously, the potential of what can happen on the court. And then off the court, like you mentioned, I think the NIL stuff is improving at South Carolina. I think South Carolina put some real funds towards NIL. Again, like I mentioned, there's some people, you know, that are high up that, you know, big money boosters, if you will, that are really passionate about basketball, right? And they really want to see it succeed, and they don't understand why men's basketball has never been a consistent winner. And so I think the NIL situation has improved a lot. But I think really what overriding is going to help South Carolina retain this talent, retain recruiting is, you know, the vision of what Lamont Paris is selling and then how it's playing out on the court and the success they're having. And I think that's going to keep a lot of guys and bring a lot of big-time players to Columbia.
Dalton Connect, you mentioned last week or the week before, Chris, that your opinion, he was the best player in the SEC this year, 20 points a game. It floors me that the best player in the league came from Northern Colorado. That's not to say, Chris, that like good basketball isn't being played in smaller leagues, you know, but do you think Tennessee even knew what they were getting with this? Like, what does it say about the SEC on the whole that the best player in the league currently came from Northern Colorado?
Yeah, I think, Mark, basketball is one of those games where I don't know if you can really look at it like football, where it's like, you know, we can count on the states of Florida and Georgia and Texas and California for the recruiting hotbeds. And I mean, I think certainly there are some cities and regions that produce more good players because basketball is either the bigger deal or they have more people there. But I mean, I think it's just the beauty of basketball, man, and some of these sports where the parity is so increased, right? And one of the biggest reasons it is there's just a lot of really good players, and they come from all over the country. And I don't know that Tennessee knew they were going to be getting arguably the best player in college basketball, one of the most lethal shooters, right? Even look back to last week, that game that South Carolina won. I mean, the only reason Tennessee was in it at the end is Dalton Connect just hit some crazy shots down the stretch. So I don't know that they knew they were getting him in that, but I mean, I just think it screams to Mark. There's just a lot of good basketball players across the country. And, you know, obviously the SEC has become an even more attractive landing spot for those guys, the way the conference has improved in the hardwood, the great coaches, if you will, featured in the league. So, you know, it doesn't really surprise me when guys come from all over, especially these blue blood programs. They're going to go out and they're going to recruit the best talent no matter where it's from.
Chris, can I get your prediction? How deep into the SEC tournament do you believe South Carolina can and will go? And ultimately, who do you think wins that thing? Who's built to win the whole thing?
How far can they go? I mean, at this point, are you really going to doubt South Carolina? They can't make it to a minimum the final day. I mean, can they win the whole thing? I mean, they've beaten two of the top three, in my opinion, in Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, I think Alabama's going to have a say. I think Auburn's going to have a say. I think Tennessee's still going to have a say. I'm worried about Kentucky's defense. It's not just against South Carolina, right? They had a really poor showing against Mark's Florida Gators, by the way. Shout out to the Gators who put on a show at Rupp Arena.
Yes, sir.
But, yeah, Kentucky's really been struggling defensively, and I think that might be the thing that holds them back this year and what's a really big year for John Calipari. So can South Carolina make it to the final day? I think they can. You know, when you ask me, Diesel, and Gamecock fans are going to hate it, you know, I still look at who's going to win the SEC tournament. I still look at a Tennessee. I still look at, you know, an Alabama and how hot they're getting, right? Because some of basketball, right, is not just are you the best team, it's do you get hot at the right time, right? Do you catch fire when it matters? Alabama is scorching hot. You know, does Auburn go on a run? And if Kentucky can get their defense shored up, I mean, obviously they've got the roster to beat anybody. But if I had to pick right now, I'd still probably pick Tennessee to win the entire tournament. I would. I still think they're the best team. I mean, it's basketball. Upsets happen. You know, I know Gamecock fans are going to say, by rule, South Carolina's the better team. But I still think Tennessee is one of the best teams in college basketball. And so if I had to pick right now, I think I'd still go with the Vols.
Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, the fan upstate, joining us from the ski slopes. We appreciate the time here, Chris. Thank you so very much, my friend. So, Chris, we are picking up here a very weird vibe, and I don't know if I've ever experienced it before, and I'm trying to figure out the why. You're South Carolina-based. You cover all the entirety of the SEC. we are picking up less interest in and around the Super Bowl than I ever have before. Okay, like really. And I understand. I'm trying to figure out the why. Kansas City, San Francisco both have Clemson and South Carolina, by the way, both have 2 players playing in the Super Bowl this year. But Chris, it's essentially in this area, there's no buzz for it. And I'm trying to figure out the why there. What do you think? How are you going to cover the Super Bowl on your show?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we'll probably just highlight the SEC guys that are in the Super Bowl, and if any of them make plays, or inevitably when they do make plays, we'll probably post some highlights here and there. But I mean, to your point, Mark, I speak for myself. I'm not a huge NFL guy. I stay so wrapped up in the college game and keeping up with 16. Let's just go ahead and talk Oklahoma and Texas. 16 SEC teams. It's a full-time gig in itself. I'll catch a game here and there, and obviously I'll watch the Super Bowl, but I don't know, Mark. I think down in the Southeast, I just think it's a little bit of a tougher draw. I really do. And I don't know how many Chiefs fans or 49ers fans we have down in the Carolinas or the Southeast in general, but I doubt it's many. Although I do have a buddy of mine that his wife is a big Chiefs fan, and they're from Kansas City. So there you go, right? I at least know one. But yeah, I mean, I think everyone will watch it. But from a diehard perspective of wanting to consume content around it or break it down or really engage on social media, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit of a tougher draw with our bases, but certainly we'll talk about it, Mark. We'll highlight it. We'll talk about the SEC guys in the Super Bowl, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch those guys ball out.
Chris, I'm going to ask you a big question now with only about 4 minutes to go in this interview. What do you make of the new SEC Big Ten Advisory Committee? Where does this ultimately go? Do we see SEC expansion? Is this the beginning of the split off? Just general thoughts.
Well, boys, it's happening. I mean, I think college sports is, whether we like it or not, changing before our very eyes, right? I think if people thought NIL and transfer portal were a big shift, I think they're going to be in for an awakening with what happens with the SEC and Big Ten. I mean, I don't have it on any sort of authority or any sources or anything like that, but I don't know how you can look at this and not think that this is truly the beginning of, the Power Five, or at least the SEC, the Big Ten, some of these bigger conferences breaking off and doing their own thing, right? I mean, why wouldn't they, right? Do the SEC and the Big Ten, do they need the NCAA anymore? And if stuff like, the battles against the transfer portal and legal court, the stuff with Tennessee and Virginia against the NCAA, if they keep going in favor of the schools, which I have a pretty good feeling they're going to, don't you think at some point somebody's going to wake up and say, hey, like, why are we listening to them? It's like the bully, right? And the kid that's being bullied, he realizes finally he's bigger than the other guy. And he's like, why am I taking this from you, right? So the SEC, the Big Ten, I think they're the big bad bullies in the schoolyard, and they're realizing the NCAA, when everybody hit their growth spurts, I think the NCAA stayed where they were, and the SEC and Big Ten sprouted like we don't have to listen to you anymore, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to happen, guys. I think even in 5 years, I think college athletics is going to look completely different from what we know it. And whether that's going to be a good or bad thing, we'll see.
Chris, is it even fair in the current climate to judge head coaches, to judge Beamer, to judge Napier? I saw you had Napier listed as dead man walking, and I still consider you a friend after that, Chris. Okay. So what is like hit me, like, how can we fairly evaluate coaches in this climate, or can we even?
That's a good question, Mark. I just think with the ever-changing landscape, and number one, you got to hold coaches accountable, right? I mean, I totally understand. Listen, they have no days off. They're being asked that, their workload is increased, but they're compensated handsomely for it, right? I mean, they are. Like, they're making life-changing money to do what they do to coach football. So I think, Mark, and I know you would agree, you absolutely have to have high standards and expectations. I don't think just because of the ever-changing landscape, you necessarily, maybe you have to be more understanding here and there. Like, hey, you're going to lose some guys in the transfer portal. NIL is going to happen. You're not going to fire a guy because you lose out on somebody because they transferred or what have you. But, that's why when Shane Beamer was hired, Mark, and I guess NIL hadn't even become a thing at this point, I felt like a 5-year window was a solid window. But I don't think all situations, Mark, are built equally. I think that's why it's really tough to just go purely off of records or purely off of scores or purely off of wins or losses or what have you. I think you have to look at the context. I think context matters. I think what program you're at matters. I think what you've done historically matters. It doesn't define you, but I think it matters, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't keep the record. We wouldn't keep it down in a record book. So, I think some guys, after 2 years. I think some, after 3. I think some, maybe it takes 5. Maybe, after 4, right? Mentioning Shane Beamer. So I think it's just one of those things, man, where I don't know that you can set hey, every coach should get 5 years or 3 years or 2 years or what have you. I think it really is a case-by-case basis, but certainly no matter what, these coaches should be held accountable and expectations should be firm. And I think that's a question South Carolina fans and this program and administration might have to ask themselves if things go south this fall.
My friends, his name is Chris Phillips, owns, runs, and operates SEC Unfiltered. He also gives you skiing recommendations, Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain, and the Carolinas. Appreciate you joining us, Chris. Thanks as always, man.
Mark Diesel, appreciate you guys. Y'all take care.
All right, we do appreciate that. Chris Phillips with a lot of insight as to what's going on the SEC basketball front. Gamecock fans, get used to it. Get used to being atop the SEC standings. Chris said, look, made some investments in name, image, and likeness. In basketball, Clemson made some investments, name, image, and likeness, a sport where one player can make a big difference.
Yeah, embrace it. He said a lot of Gamecock fans are waiting for the shoe to drop when it comes to basketball. You're waiting for a tough loss. You got to stay in that pocket. You can't hit the eject button if you lose one game that you're not supposed to. You got to stay with it. North Carolina lost to Georgia Tech, and they stayed in the top 5. And they sold the place out the next night. Granted, it was Duke. But still, those fan bases who take basketball seriously, even when they lose a game, they still show out and pack the arena the next night anyway. And that's how you keep your program operating at a high level. You got to embrace it. You got to really embrace it.
All right, my friends, we've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Of course, you can take part on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone at 844-326-3663 and via the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. This is the week, my friends, of Radio Row. I've been to Radio Row. It's a blast. I'll tell you about it. I want to bring you there momentarily because I know most have not been there. Think of Radio Row like the following. You're inside like a convention center or like a huge hotel reception area, right? Convention center, hotel reception area. And you're in the room. And there's about 200 people in the room coming and going at any moment. You are the least famous person in the room, and you've never been happier in your entire life. Like you're in a room, and Jerry Rice is there. When I was there, Brooklyn Decker was there. I was at the Super Bowl Radio Row in Miami, 2010. Would have been Super Bowl 44. And Brooklyn Decker walking in, I remember saying to the dude next to me, I said, I don't know who that is, but that might be, at that point in my life, the prettiest woman I've ever seen. Who is that? And he said, that's SI swimsuit cover model. She's on the cover, Brooklyn Decker. She's married to tennis player Andy Roddick. And I went up and I got a picture with Brooklyn Decker. It was incredible. And so you're walking around and you see Troy Aikman to your left and Jim Rome to your right. And it's total sensory overload, and you realize that you can't act like a fan, right? You can't do that. The same token, you cannot, under any pretenses, right? You can't schmooze. You can't act like you're overwhelmed by the moment. You got to act like you belong there. And so it's a blast. I've been to a Radio Row in Houston, most recently 2017. And on that Radio Row in Houston, met Alyssa Milano. And I know a lot of you, especially listening right now, I think our audience loves Alyssa Milano, don't they, Diesel? I think our audience, Offsiders, are huge Alyssa Milano fans.
Yeah, these are all dudes that had a crush on Alyssa Milano from Who's the Boss when they were a kid, and now they don't like her politics, so they hate her guts.
It doesn't make any sense to me, guys. Separate church and state, please. Okay? You can't find me one person that you completely agree with about everything politically.
I mean, there's all kinds of women on Fox News who I disagree with what they say, but I still say, you're really trustworthy.
It's time for us, my friends, to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the upstate, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5 today, my friends, one of our favorite promotions is back this year. That's right. MARC RYAN is willing to crash your Super Bowl party. Okay, I got to introduce it this way. I don't like speaking of myself in the third person. It feels really weird. But we did this in 2019. We did this in 2020. This time I'll have my gorgeous wife with me. It is her birthday today. Please join me in wishing my beautiful wife, Angela, a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Angela.
Yes, there you go, Diesel. Babe, we love you dearly. Absolutely love you dearly. And you have enriched my life in so many ways. But if you would be so kind, if you do send us an invite to your Super Bowl get-together, doesn't matter if there's 3 people there or 30 people there. Doesn't matter. You know, what we will do, the wifey and I will put the different addresses in a hat. We'll draw 2 or 3, and we depending on which ones we draw, we'll come out to the get-together. What do you say? So if you would be so kind, if you wouldn't mind the wifey and I crashing your Super Bowl get-together, do us a favor, one of 2 things. You can text your address to us at 71307 on the text line, or give us a call. Have Diesel write it down for us on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, 844-326-3663. JD on the text line wishing a very happy birthday to Angela as well. They met at a Dan B. July 4th party that I foolishly put this in a ghost. What are those chips called, Diesel? Those ghost chips? There's
Was it you didn't do the one chip challenge?
I ate a piece of it. It was the worst decision.
So you didn't
I
eat
ever
the
made.
whole chip?
No way. No way. Diesel, I had tears coming out of my eyes.
But you did have some of the hot sauce from the show Hot Ones.
Yeah.
Whatever the modern version is, because there's been multiple versions of The Last Dab. So whatever the newest version of The Last Dab was, did you have any of Da Bomb? I think you had an updated version of Da Bomb.
I did.
It's awful.
It was dropping a bomb.
Yeah.
On the midsection there. It's brutal, man. I'll never do that again. But guys, if you care to have the wifey and I come by your Super Bowl get together, it'd be fun to see you. Be fun to meet you. All you got to do, call in or text us in with your address, and we will draw some addresses out, and we'll be heading out. We just might be knocking on your door. You think people are thrilled, Diesel, when Publishers Clearinghouse, remember that back in the day, would randomly show up at your home with millions of dollars? I think they run when MARC RYAN shows up at the door. But it's a different reaction, running away or running towards. In my case, it's running away. Next up.
Wouldn't it be cruel if somebody gave you the address to their home, but they went out to a different party instead?
Diesel, you just gave them ideas. I do not want you to give them ideas. What you may not know, okay, is that when we did this in 2020, one of our listeners, his name is Justin Hartman, invited me to his house. Said, I didn't think you would really come, so he wasn't there. So I show up at his house, and it's his mom, it's his dad, it's his wife. And they thought this thing was a hoot. First of all, they were like, who are you? The hell are you? I told them. They thought it was hilarious. They called Justin and had him come back over. Dude, you invited this guy over to the house. He's here. You're not here. How can you do that? All right, my friends. Next up.
4.
At number 4 today. Guys, Clemson has 2 players playing in the Super Bowl. Justin Ross, Ray McLeod III. South Carolina has 2 players playing in the Super Bowl. Deebo Samuel, Javon Kinlaw. Both have 2 players. It's interesting to me. We were going into the number of the schools that have the greatest number of active players in the NFL. Diesel guessed 2 of the first 3 right. Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, and Georgia was his guess. Georgia's actually number 4. LSU has them beat just by 1. They're number 3. Florida is 5th. Florida has 46 players in the NFL. Clemson is 9th. Clemson has 41 players in the NFL. And South Carolina kind of punching above their weight a little bit, number 26 in the rankings. They have 27 total players, active players in the NFL. We've got Alabama leading the way with 73 players in the NFL. And then there is this. How about where the players in this year's Super Bowl played high school football? What do you say? What do you say? This is unbelievable. I kind of really like this breakdown. Comes from our buddy Cole Bryson. California, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, and Texas all have 9 or more players expected to take the field. Okay, expected to take the field in Las Vegas. How about that, my friend? Isn't that something else? Now, let's go through here and look at the state of South Carolina. Okay, the state of South Carolina from the 49ers has 2 for the Niners, Deebo Samuel and Javon Kinlaw. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, the state of South Carolina has none listed. None listed. So you got 4 players combined from Clemson and South Carolina, the 2 schools, but only 2 players originally from the state. We tried. We'll try to do better the next time. Perhaps next season. Next up.
3.
All right, guys. My big opinion today on the Super Bowl is this. My prediction is that if Patrick Mahomes wins this game, it'll be Super Bowl number 3. Tom Brady has 6. My belief is that Mahomes doesn't necessarily have to have more Super Bowl wins than Tom Brady, okay, to be considered better than Tom. So I feel as though if Mahomes wins this game, he ultimately is going to go down as the GOAT, okay? I think if he wins this one, that'll be 3. He'll finish with 4 or 5. It'll be close enough in terms of total Super Bowl wins where there will be a debate. There'll be a discussion. Remember, he's only 28 years old. The male athletic prime is 28 years old. Oftentimes, quarterbacks hit their prime in their 30s. I believe if Mahomes wins this game, when all is said and done, he will be regarded as the GOAT.
I think they hit their prime in their 30s because they've learned to be intelligent football players. You get out of your 20s, you realize you can't do what you did physically 25, 26, 27 years old. So it forces you to become a more intelligent football player, which elevates everything around you.
And Mahomes will be opposing Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy here talks about learning a lot from the veterans who have been to the Super Bowl previously.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because you get to talk to guys all the time about their experiences throughout their years and their career. Obviously, their experiences here. I'm talking to Eric Armstead and what it was like in 2019 for him, and obviously even when he first got here and what it was like till now. And same with George and Fred, Drake Greenlaw, his rookie year playing the Super Bowl. Same with Deebo. Like, you got all these guys that have played in big moments and big games, and all those things have added up to their experiences, and you get to ask about them, to them. So that everyone's got a little different perspective and maturity to them. So for me as a young guy in the league, like it's pretty fun, and I'm very blessed to have those kind of guys because I get to ask them, and everyone's got a new perspective on it, and everyone's mature and everyone understands what it takes. So for all of us young guys on this team, man, we're very lucky to have those older guys to sort of put their arms around us and sort of teach us the way.
The words of one Brock Purdy. What is your biggest Super Bowl legacy piece that is on the line here today? Okay? Like what in this game, what's the biggest thing on the line in terms of a player's legacy? I'm saying Mahomes wins this game. He's ultimately going to go down as the GOAT. Next up.
2.
At number 2 on the show today, how about the South Carolina Gamecocks, my friends? Number 15 in the AP poll, number 20 in the coaches poll. I feel like I kind of nailed it. My guess was they would be 18th. Split the difference between both of them. Guys, Lamont Paris is like butter because he's on a roll. What he's doing, essentially with the island of misfit toys, a hodgepodge of a cast of characters, getting him to buy in, play together as a team, and really kind of conform to what he wants overnight is insanely impressive. You know, I use a site, Team Rankings, for college basketball tournament projections. TeamRankings.com says the Clemson Tigers are 98% chance to make it. They say the Gamecocks are 59%. I say reverse those two odds. Gamecocks 98%, Clemson 59%. Clemson is in 11th place in the ACC right now. You know, I feel like Clemson fans that have forecasted and predicted doom for their team are part of a toxic culture problem there. You're making the current team pay the tab for the hate you have for Brad Brownell. But gosh darn it, if that isn't starting to happen, if that isn't starting to unfold right in front of your face. Lost to Virginia at home. Number 3, at number 3, North Carolina tomorrow. How do you get by that? Does Clemson make the tournament when all is said and done? And finally,
1.
At number 1 on the show today. My friends, 38% of the NFL has never won the Super Bowl. Okay? 4 out of 32 teams, 12% of the NFL, has never even made it to the Super Bowl. How about that? How crazy is that? So we ask you guys, of the 4 teams that haven't yet made it to the Super Bowl, Detroit, Cleveland, Jacksonville, and Houston, and the 12 teams who haven't yet won the Super Bowl, Arizona, Atlanta, Buffalo, Carolina, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Detroit, Houston, Jacksonville, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, Tennessee Titans. Who is next to make it? Who is next to win it? I'm going Motown for both. It's not just about current form. It's you've got a coach. Was the backup tight end to Jason Witten in Dallas. Had overtures to return to College Station, Texas A&M. Didn't go. Wants to be there a long time. Is a perfect fit for that city. He says, look, we're not guaranteed to be back next year. I'm saying you are. We're not guaranteed to ever be back, he said. I think you are. Okay? It's about current form, plus it's about the coach that you have and what you're building with that team. I think Buffalo, you could argue they're close. I think Sean McDermott, their head coach, is holding them back. I'd move on from him. Cincinnati Bengals, close. Cleveland Browns, great defense, getting closer. Houston, Jacksonville, they feel like they've got their quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence has got to play a lot better. But I'm going Detroit is the next team to make the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl, that hasn't done so. Diesel says it's C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. What say you? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663 on the Renewal by Anderson Fan Phone, F-A-N-F-O-N-E. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on each one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd love to have you. Also on Apple Podcasts and Google Play. What do you say? Love to have you there. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Pleased and honored, guys, that some Super Bowl invites are coming in. We value and appreciate that. Just please know, if we end up not making it out to your party, it's simply because we put the addresses in the hat. We drew them out. We didn't draw yours. Okay. We can only go to 2 or 3, but we are going to do it. We are going to do it again this year. So thank you so much in advance for the invite. It means a lot to us. All right, my friends, coming your way next. A mock draft has been released. ESPN.com, Matt Miller. He's one of the best in the business at what he does. You're going to be surprised where this player is going. And that's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate.
Ladies and gentlemen on the stream, thank you so much for being around here yet again today. Dan B. I don't know if you saw this, but I put your comment on screen so that everyone would know that Mark cried like a little bee when he ate the really hot sauce. You're welcome for that, Mark.
Thank you, guys. Dan B., when's the next get together? What are we doing? When's the next one happening, brother? I appreciate you guys so much. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.